Hello, and welcome to the Schmidt List, the podcast for people dedicated to managing successful projects, developing impactful products, and building engaged teams. And now, here's your host, Kurt Schmidt.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This week, Kate Agnew joins me to talk about the state of education and technology, and she also shares her experiences of going to school at M.I.T., working at Target and DreamWorks. She also helped build Girls in Tech in Minneapolis, and that's all led her to her current role as a senior IT architect at Optum. It's a great conversation. Kate is great, so take a listen, and I'll see you on the other side of the show. Okay, Kate, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about your background, how you got into development, and what you're doing these days.
So I studied math in undergrad and wanted to go into event planning just because I thought that would be fun. And then I was graduating and a blurb went through the math department that Target was hiring. I was like, oh, Target, that could be cool. Maybe I can, get a discount. I eventually started there just after I graduated in their technology leadership development program. So went through a few rotations and really got engaged in technology in a way that I never had before. I didn't even take any development courses in undergrad, which I kind of regret now, but just kind of shows you the ways that the times have changed even in the last 10 years.
Sure.
But then I got engaged with Girls in Tech kind of around that same time by realizing, one, how few women there were in technology. I think that Target was actually more unique because there were a lot of women. But once I had done a summer program, I was like, there are literally no other women in technology outside of Target. So I found the Girls in Tech group here in the Twin Cities and started working with them. I was then the managing director of that organization for a while, which just, I think, got me more engaged in tech across the Twin Cities, so more of the startup scene and more of all of that. And then I think out of a boredom or not really knowing where my life was taking me, I decided to go to business school. So I applied to 8 schools round 1, which is a foolish way of going about that. But I ultimately got accepted to M.I.T. and did their full-time business program, where I was able to focus on data analytics. So fell into more of that mathematical background. I loved it. I think that, of all of the business schools I could have gotten into, it was the best fit because it's the nerdiest of them all, especially just being up the street from Harvard Business School,
Sure.
where it's so night and day different, very bro-y, kind of that frat boy atmosphere. And I would not have enjoyed 2 years of that. So came back to the Twin Cities and kind of bounced around a little bit. I worked at a small marketing firm doing some data analytics. Didn't like being in Excel all day, every day. So went polar opposite and worked on some marketing for a small startup here in the Twin Cities, and realized that we didn't have a product to market quite yet. So got laid off from that and then spent the summer as a campaign manager for someone running for re-election for city council, because if you can't make it in a startup, you might as well jump into politics.
Yeah, it's an easy transition.
It really was, yeah. And then I just kind of fell into the role that I'm at now. I'm out at United Health Group, but ran into my now manager at Mini Demo and was just kind of explaining, hey, I would love to help technology companies or technology groups get better business decisions from the data that they have. And so that's kind of what I'm doing now.
Let's go back to what you were saying a little bit about the bro-y atmosphere. As you were going through all those different stages of learning, what is one of the bigger challenges for a woman as she's going through the technology education versus, I want to forget talking about maybe the career aspect of it, right? But let's talk about how did you feel as you were entering into those educational components? Was it more intimidating? Was it just challenging? What were your thoughts and feeling? What was your focus as you went through that experience?
I think that in college in particular, the 18 to 22-year-old times of our lives, it was difficult to be in classes where I was the only female and to be treated as an equal versus having everyone offer to work on projects with me, and I felt very accepted or like maybe flirted with by everyone. And so that was really difficult to navigate of, okay, are these friendships, or how do I learn to work with other people? And I think that certain things like that then ripple into your life outside of college once you graduate.
This is a reoccurring theme when I talk to anybody, students. I mean, I experienced it leaving college too. If you ran your own school, right, and you were pumping out students in the technology area, I mean, what would be some ways that you would want to address that, getting people ready for the real, air quotes, real world?
So when I think back to school, my classes did not do anything to develop me for the corporate world. But what gave me the best training were the internships that I did and being involved in student government and having to coordinate things on campus and work with different people of different levels. And so I think in designing my own program, I would have it all internship based or learning on the job. I think that that's so valuable and is very then similar to what business school is like. Obviously a little bit different from a content perspective, but there were always consulting projects, and we'd be a group of 4 or 5 going and working with a company for 3 months and found that we were actually able to deliver value. And so I think that by going through that experience, I was then able to come into a new job and say, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of learning, but I could actually bring value to this team pretty quickly. And then that made me not as hesitant to put myself forward.
And so let's talk about the differences between working in a startup and in a large organization. What's your thoughts if you were coaching a young woman on should you join a big company or join a startup? Where are you going to learn the most? Where are you going to gain footing quickly? If you were to look back and say, you know, what experience should I have before I join one or other of these organizations even? But yeah, what's your take? What's your advice?
So before business school, the only experience I had was Target, which is a huge company. Afterwards, I knew I wanted to only work in small companies because I had all these ideas of what big meant in compared to small. Certain things like flexibility and the ability to wear multiple hats and be involved in different parts of the business while still actively contributing in the areas that you're in. So that's what my idea was of startups. Yeah. And having been at smaller companies now, I have found I was more narrowly focused in those roles. And while I had visibility to what other people were doing, and I think I saw more of different areas, I wasn't working on those different things. And so even when I was looking at, the job that I'm in now, I still said, I'm looking for a small company. I don't want to go back to the big corporation. And I found myself at Fortune 6. So it took me a while to get over that of, oh my gosh, I'm back at a big company. What does that mean? And I realized the components that I was most worried about losing were the flexibility. That I can come and do a podcast at 3 p.m. and not have to worry about taking PTO or getting the sign off from my manager. I work best super early in the morning. So sometimes I'll go in at 7 a.m. and pump out a lot of work before other people get in. And I want to be trusted as an adult to manage my own work and my schedule. And I found that to be the case in large corporations. So I think, it's important to sample both. They are very different. There's a lot more bureaucracy. The number of emails that I will send in order to get screws to install a new server would make your head burst.
No, I've experienced that. I know.
It's just like, really, how is it this difficult? But at the same time, like I enjoy having to figure out how to navigate that. So yeah, big companies or small companies, I think they all have something good to offer.
In terms of, you were talking about internships. What are some internships that you experienced that you felt were really valuable?
I got to be an intern at DreamWorks Animation, which was so cool to be in Los Angeles. And I met really influential people in the entertainment industry. I, however, was in the branding arm rather than the technology arm, so I didn't enjoy the day-to-day as much, but just learned so much about how exposed to it. Different an industry can be. Entertainment is so much more political than retail, healthcare, anything else.
And people think those are very political.
Exactly. So, I really enjoyed that one. Another one that comes to mind is I was an intern at Best Buy. So, again, another big company, but that one allowed me to see the inner workings of a large organization. And I find then when I had my job at Target, felt a lot more comfortable navigating, there's actually a specific organization for servers, and I have to talk to the one person who knows how to do this one job.
The keys to the kingdom.
In order to get something done. So those are the types of valuable things I think I learned in my internships.
Well, that's good. And so you'd mentioned you felt internships were really important, right? But I find these days, especially in the technology side, I see in the creative side, it's much easier. A lot of ad agencies do internships. They hold giant pageants almost around their internships. They're big deals to them. But I also see that some of these mid-sized companies struggle with it. It's hard to pay for, right? Because you're taking people's time away from what they're doing. What's the ROI that you're actually getting from these internships? Because you can't know for sure whether you would want to hire this person or not. And will they get value from it, right? I believe that in today's world, internships need to be paid internships. I don't really believe in free internships. I think some people still do that, though. And I struggle because if there's somebody who really wants to break into an industry and the only thing they can find is an unpaid internship, I struggle to say, no, you shouldn't do it, because if you really want it, and this is all that's in front of you, you've got to get that experience. You've got to get that under your belt, because if nobody's just handing you internships as part of your college curriculum, you got to get scrappy, right? If you were to coach somebody who was kind of stuck in a loop, maybe they're career transitioning, right? Maybe they're going from, I was doing this now, and now I'm interested more in technology, or these sorts of things. What are the sorts of things you would coach them on to expose themselves to in order to get a better understanding? Is it meetup groups? Is it books? Where would you start, or ask somebody to start?
I think getting engaged in the community is really important. Going to meetups that they have, or Beta MN, or any little technology get together is really great. And then also being active in the Twitter community or the online community. I learned so much when I was first starting through Twitter, just by people that I followed and articles that I read. And then you also get to know other people through that. Yeah. I met a lot of really great people online who I'm like, I follow you. This is... I was a little starstruck with some people, but it just really helped me understand the inner workings of the industry, especially locally. So those are the things that I would recommend. And I know that there's so many events here, as I'm sure everywhere. I mean, even in Boston when I was there, in LA, I could always find groups. So getting involved in those, and then finding opportunities to just, hey, can I just meet up and let's have coffee and you tell me more about what your day-to-day is like? Yeah. I found that to be extremely valuable as I was looking for my career after college.
But Kate, I'm intimidated, and these people know everything and they're super smart, and
they don't though.
But I'm supposed to go up and